We're rounding off our frank talk tonight with Phakamile Hlubi-Majola about the state of palace state of our parastatals, Eskom. What is NUMSA saying? I mean, we've waited a bit for the leader, a CEO at Eskom. Apparently 160-something people were interviewed. And last week, an announcement in the middle of your SAA strike that we have a new CEO. Your take?
For us, it's disappointing that Director has been appointed to this position. It's disappointing, firstly, from the position of transformation. We don't buy government's explanation that there's no qualified, competent black engineers who can't do this job. We reject that. We believe there are plenty. They've just been deliberately overlooked for their own reasons. But also, secondly, we have experience with this man at Nampak. And
that's so.
And what he did there. He failed to turn around the entity. In fact, as far as we are concerned, what he specializes in is closing businesses and selling them off. He did that with various divisions at Nampak. Under his tenure, or the majority of, in fact, all black executives, the few black executives that were there left. So there's, in our view, we can already see through his past experience what the future is going to look like for Eskom, and it's not very good. Based on his experience, it does seem to us that he will be doing the cold-blooded work of unbundling Eskom and privatizing it for the benefit of the private sector.
This sounds like you're not consulted in the build-up. Are you saying that the Eskom board, in appointing a CEO, did not try and consult stakeholders somewhat, and you are a big stakeholder at Eskom?
We were not consulted. In fact, even on this issue of unbundling, Eskom's management has done a very poor job of consulting. There's so many things that we still don't know, many things we find out through the media. They've not really, the way this process has been handled has been handled very badly. And I think that's why workers have good reason to be suspicious and to be worried and to be negative, because they've not been brought in and told everything. We're given
Actually,
information.
Jabu Mabuza, as someone who has worked in the trenches himself and so on, surely should have reached out to you somewhat. What's your assessment of his leadership in this whole process? I mean, at some point, the government has so much confidence in him and less in any of the executives at Eskom that they made him both chair and CEO at the same time. That must count for something.
Well, we believe that Jabu is there because he's going to do exactly what government tells him to do. In our view, he has no business running Eskom or being anywhere near an entity like Eskom because he has no engineering experience, certainly no experience in running an entity of this nature. And the experience that he does have, I mean, look, it's great, it's good for him, he ran Telkom. But that does Telkom and Eskom, it's like apples and oranges. It's definitely not the same thing. And we feel that somebody with engineering experience would have been better suited in that position. We think that part of the reason he was hired is because, remember, under his tenure, many jobs were lost at Telkom. So it really, in our view, solidifies what we've been saying consistently, which is that these people
are in deep trouble between Jabu Mabuza as chair and Director as CEO in terms of both their track records and as far as restructuring is concerned. Am I...
Our fear. The future does not look good for our members at Eskom. And this is why we've been very honest from the beginning to say that this is really going to be a battle, just like we were with our members at SAA. We're dealing with a shareholder that is hell-bent on selling these assets. And whenever they involve the private sector, it's the working class who get hurt all the time. This has been our history in South Africa. There's no positive story ever that's ever emerged from these types of arrangements, unfortunately.
Eskom has always operated in the three units that are now being touted as future companies or divisions, right? They've actually always had an MD running each of those. What is the value of unbundling in your view, in your understanding? Why why the desire to unbundle as a solution to solving Eskom's problems?
We believe that it is a precursor to privatization. That is how most companies operate, especially entities in the nature of Eskom, state-owned entities. It's just to make it easier for the private sector to enter that particular space. We're already seeing that with the way the independent power producers were connected to inside Eskom. So we believe that unbundling is just to make it easier for that process to occur. Excuse me. We also believe that during this process of the unbundling, you will see them coming up with rationale for why these particular three entities as separate entities should downsize their staffing levels. And that for us has always ultimately been our biggest worry, the impact on jobs in a country where jobs are not being created, where unemployment is really rapidly rising and poverty continues to increase at a rapid rate, and where government has no clear strategy for how these workers are going to be absorbed in new industries. They're not even creating, in our view, new viable industries which can replace this skill set of workers. You know, many workers at Eskom came through internships from tertiary institutions. They're very specialized in what they know in terms of energy generation. And it's very, very sad that thousands of them are going to be rendered unemployed at the end of this process with no place to go.
You feel helpless. In other words, are you just going to look at this unbundling happening in front of your eyes?
Absolutely not. We are mobilizing workers the same way that we've had to mobilize workers at SAA to defend the airline. Workers at SAA are going to have to defend Eskom. There's no other option. You heard what Kosatu said. Were you not shocked by what Kosatu said? I mean, you could have blown me down with a feather. When I couldn't
I was going to raise that to
what
say,
I was reading.
To say that because of the disunity amongst the workers, do you think that maybe at the end of the day you are going to just have to swallow the bitter pill?
No. Members of the working class must never just swallow a bitter pill. They should do everything in their power to fight. That's what they did at SAA. That's what's going to have to happen at Eskom. It's clear to us that government, as the shareholder, is not going to save them. Neither is COSATU. So workers are going to have to unite behind the demand to find an alternative for Eskom. And that alternative cannot include privatization and job losses.
But with the radar, it looks like that's where it's going.
It does look like that's where it's going. But we can only do what we can do as unions. We've made it very clear that there are some battles that can never ever be fought in the boardroom. I'm sure you've heard GS say that many times.
Yeah.
But it's true. Some battles you will never win in the boardroom. This one, unfortunately, is going to be won in the streets.
And again, have you engaged the Minister of Public Enterprises there?
Not yet on Eskom. You know, we were very, very preoccupied with SAA last week. But certainly we do hope for engagements going into the future on Eskom. We want more detail and more clarification, and we've raised this in our engagements with the board and management, that we want more detail and more clarification about this process, what it means for workers. We believe there's a lot of information that's being deliberately withheld. And also, we have also secured a Section 77 notice to strike over the issue of Eskom. So in other words, a socio-economic strike for Eskom. Yes, we have. We have.
Sure, so we must be ready for a showdown.
We hope it doesn't get to that point. But if we are pushed into a corner, we won't have any other option except to do just that.
Recently, you also had to deal with Denel paying people 85% of their salaries. Extraordinary stuff.
Denel is a mess, Denel is a mess. And again, it's the same situation. In fact, we've been served with Section 189 in the Aeronautics Department at Denel. So, you know, the government has made it clear that it doesn't want to allocate any more of a bailout to Denel. Also, Denel has problems with its board and its executive management in relation to corruption. So again, it's another example of an SOE which is collapsing, or seems to be collapsing anyway, and workers are paying with their jobs. We are actually planning a big meeting this weekend as NUMSA with our shop stewards on Denel to devise a clear strategy and a way forward in terms of how we're going to respond to all of this. But it's very clear to us. Even if you listen to the speech, if you remember Tito Mbowene's medium-term budget speech, he made it clear that they're going for the public sector and they're going for SOEs. And you can see that now. Denel, Eskom, SAA, there's a very clear strategy to privatize. And really the only way that this is going to be stopped is if workers themselves do the work of stopping this process.
Summary overall in terms of parastatals, are we in crisis overall on parastatals? Because you remember there was a report commissioned under former Commissioner Ria Pierre, right, which looked at all 718 SOEs. And that report seems to have not seen the light of day. And it was beginning to say which parastatals, in fact, are even necessary to start with, let alone efficient at all as parastatals. What's your overall take? Are we in deep crisis?
I would say we definitely are headed for very, very deep water on this situation. Already it's become very clear that government wants to privatize. They want to privatize. And they know that workers, they're willing to do that. And I think that is the most tragic thing out of all of this. But also, I think it's important for us to try and look at SOEs, not just in terms of whether they're a burden on the taxpayer or not. Let's look at the role that these SOEs are supposed to be playing in our economy. When you look at Eskom, for example, we are not anywhere near the levels of industrialization that we need to have achieved as a nation in order to go forward, in order to become a modern country. We've got 4IR literally on our doorstep, and yet vast tracts of South Africa still remain undeveloped, still remain without electricity. And here they are talking about privatization of our own only energy entity. So it's bizarre when you think that, because they're treating us like a first world country when in many respects we're not. And there's many parts of this country that are far from being that. And yet the solution is not being created for the majority of people. These solutions have been devised so that the 1% who, according to stats, say are earned a 48% increase in their wages, continue to make even more money at the expense of the poor and the working class.
Phakamile, never enough time to talk to you. Please keep up the good work, and we hope to have some more conversations with you on the other parastatals. I think we should, often we only talk about those that are in our faces. But if there are 700 parastatals, I wonder how many are going through this with, incompetent boards, strangled executives, interfering shareholder, and you name it, it's there. And it looks like we still have a long way to. It's a mess.
It's a mess.
It's a total mess, and hopefully, with the pushback that we're seeing from people like yourselves and so on, maybe we'll bring these parastatals from the brink. But thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, JJ. It was a pleasure.
All right, that was Phakamile Hlubi-Majola talking to us there about a mess at parastatals. What do you think? Do you think that these can be saved? Do you believe in the gung-ho anti-privatization stance of the unions, or the gung-ho privatization appetite of government? Let's take a break now.